adorning the t-shirts, iPods, and Facebook pages of young teens everywhere. These bands, along with a few others, span different decades from the 60s to the early 90s, and musical genres from pop to grunge. While paying tribute to our influences is certainly not a bad thing, it is important to keep them as our influences. Today, with music becoming more and more of a business, the artists and listeners are losing control, and businessmen are swiftly taking up the reins. Many younger people are seeing the decline in the quality of music reaching the Billboard Top 40. Unfortunately, these youth, provided with the perfect climate for radical change, are instead turning back to their parents' generations for rebellion to the likes of the subpar actresses turned subpar singers of today's charts. This mass return to what has been deemed classic rock is potentially incredibly dangerous to the forward movement of music. We must look to the past to understand this progression that music follows. In the early 1920s, African-American work songs collided with jazz, ragtime, and American folk and country to yield 12-bar instrumentals with calm, responsive lyrics that were deemed the blues. Early on came the Delta Blues, raw and acoustic, named for the extremely impoverished Mississippi Delta region it originated in. Blues migrated north, most notably to Chicago and Detroit, where the addition of electric instruments gave us John Lee Hooker, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, and many other artists throughout the 30s and 40s. Seeing the potential in blues songs to break out of the inner city clubs and onto record players all over the country, musicians such as Chuck Berry and Little Richard forged the path to rock and roll in the 1950s. In the early 60s, groups like the Beatles furthered the reach of rock and roll, bringing it to white youth and truly securing its place in mainstream pop culture. As the 60s went on, rock began to change more and more rapidly, with Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin forging hard rock and metal, Pink Floyd making the way for psychedelic and progressive rock. All of a sudden, this flowchart we call rock exploded in a million different directions, arriving later at punk in the 70s, new wave in the 80s, grunge in the 90s, all the way up to modern rock, punk, indie, hip-hop, and tons of others today. Music today is in a very strange place. Popular music rests in some sort of limbo defined solely by its ambiguity. Charts are topped by the likes of Nickelback, Pink, Britney Spears, the same artists who have been topping the charts for over 15 years. On the other hand, we have the do-it-all celebrities, such as the Jonas Brothers and Miley Cyrus, created by companies like Disney and fed to children and teens. This system eliminates the potential for change and progress in music. Where earlier bands such as Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd became famous by climbing the ladder from local clubs to international arena shows, TV shows such as American Idol ruin the work ethic of the modern musician, promising get-rich-quick schemes as opposed to dedication, practice, and work. Outside of having connections at a major record label, the music business is almost impenetrable. 81.87% of the entire US music market is controlled by the big four of the music business: EMI, Warner Music, Sony, and Universal. Commercial radio, once an outlet for new music and upcoming artists, is now reserved solely for the super famous, guaranteed to bring as many listeners as possible for the purpose of increasing revenue. Any sort of progressive music is ignored and left to the independent radio and the 18.13% of the music market, divided amongst thousands of independent record companies. Because much of this 18.1% of independent music takes a bit of effort to search out, youth turn instead to past generations of rock and their rebellion to the low quality of modern popular music. Often unbeknownst to them, all of these bands, such as Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, are on one, if not more, of the big four record labels. The same companies that signed Pink, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and all the popular artists classic rock listeners are so quick to denounce as corporate sellouts. This sad state of music must be changed, which leads me to the future of music. The future of music is in our hands. If things remain the way they are, we will never see music progress. I urge you to be active listeners. I urge you to pay attention to what you are hearing. I beg you to listen to independent radio, to search online and find a new artist, to spend the night and a couple of bucks to go see a local band show. I urge you to critique, to criticize, to listen and judge for yourselves, but with an open mind and open ears to all new sounds. The climate is ripe for revolution. The music companies are sitting back. Meanwhile, beneath them, the tides are rising. We have computers. We have the internet, synthesizers, MIDI instruments. We have the ability to break regional borders, reach into other cultures, experience various traditions of music, learn from them, and combine them with our own to create sounds never heard before. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a crossroads, perhaps the very same one where Robert Johnson fell down on his knees, sold his soul to the devil, and revolutionized music, ushering America into the 1900s with the blues. Do we want to stay where we are? Do we want to turn back on our progress? Or do we want to push on, push forward, and usher in a new era of music, our era of music? Thank you.